pandemic, and a lot of people, one thing I will say, a lot of people have been very, what's the word, creative and intuitive. They just, they've been innovative is the word that I'm looking for. A lot of people have been very innovative. They're like, listen, we're going to have to get this hustle on, because I think it really showed us that there's really no guarantee, right? So I, of course, was very excited when you began to make your journey into your new venture. And so I've been so, really just excited for everybody just to see people on social media and just everybody just kind of launching all these different streams of income and really just walking out that faith. For years I've been saying that I felt the Holy Spirit saying that there was going to come a time when we were going to have to walk it like we talk it. And I think for so many years we've talked about a faith walk, and it was easy because life was easy. And then all of a sudden we get hit with 2020 and it's like, oh crap, what are we going to do? So here we are. I wanted to tell the world your story. So for people who don't know, Angela, I'm gonna let you, of course, introduce yourself. But we met. I don't even know how many years has it been now. 4?
Oh, I don't know, 4 or 5.
4 or 5 years. We met 4 or 5 years ago. I was doing an event in Dallas and solicited a helper, an assistant, and humbly you volunteered, and it just connected us from there. That was, I still thank God for that, because who would have known?
Right.
Who would have known? And there was, I don't think I got anybody else to even volunteer for that. So
oh, really?
It was like distant. And so from there we just kind of been connected, and so we've kind of walked this journey together. You being a hairstylist, me being a hairstylist, us both being in the same industry, and same industry and same niche, being in natural hair. And so I wanted you to go ahead and introduce the people to who exactly Angela Pickett-Murphy is. Who are you? Who are you?
Okay, well, I'm Angela Pickett-Murphy, and I am a lifelong resident of Texarkana, Texas, born in Germany, but my family resided in Texarkana, Arkansas, and now I live in Texarkana, Texas. I am a wife of my high school sweetheart, Derek Murphy. We've been together since we were 14 and 16, getting ready to celebrate 20 years of marriage this year. We have 3 children. They are Nicholas, Mackenzie, and Derek Jr., and they are 18, 17, 16. Nicholas and Mackenzie are about to graduate this year, and then Derek Jr. is a sophomore. I am employed with the Liberty Eylau ISD School District as an administrative assistant to our special education director. I do that full time, and then part time, I do my passion, which is teaching people how to love and embrace their natural hair. And I have a salon, Naturally Sweet Hair Boutique and Salon, and I have been the owner of it for it's be 4 years this year. And I love what I do. I love the connections that I get to make. When Markeita put that clarion call out looking for an assistant, I told my husband, I said, this is the opportunity that I had been looking for, because there aren't any natural hairstylists here in town besides myself, or people that focus solely on natural hair. And there was nobody to glean from. There was nobody to go look at. And so I had always said, if I get an opportunity just to learn, I was willing to do anything. And, you put the call out, and I was willing to do anything. So that was sweep up the hair, or pull out these hairpins, or take these payments, whatever it was that I needed to do. I was willing to do just to be around somebody that was doing what I love to do.
That's the beautiful thing about it. The one thing that I always tell anybody, especially anybody that I mentor as far as a stylist or anything, the most important thing that you need is a servant's heart. And that was the very first thing that I noticed. It was just like, and you told me that you was like, if you just need me to sweep the hair, hand
Well,
bobby
and
pins.
I think that what happens is, because I was in cosmetology school when that opportunity came up, and I think social media has made everybody think that everybody's supposed to be a star to begin with.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I understood that, yes, this was something that I wanted to do. And yes, I was even semi good at it. I still needed to learn and I needed to serve. So I was
Mm-hmm.
willing to do whatever it took for me to do in order to get to that place.
That's right.
I would be, crazy to come up to you and be like, okay, so I know you asked me to assist, but you really need to let me twist. You know what I'm saying? It would be crazy of
Yeah.
me to do that. I was there to serve whatever you needed for me to do. And in that, I got to watch how you interacted with the clients. I got to watch how you did your consultations. I got to watch how you pin certain things. And then it formed a mentorship, because I do tell people
Right.
that you're one of my mentors.
Yeah.
And so you can't get that by going in thinking that you're everything. And that's not even
Mm-hmm.
saying that you don't know your worth, but that's also saying that you need to earn your keep. And
Yeah.
so some of these things we have to earn. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was willing to put in the work to earn, your trust, because in this
Yeah.
industry, it is a situation where a lot of stylists don't trust other stylists. And
Yeah.
so
It's
I
kind of
needed
dog eat
to.
dog.
Absolutely. And that's what I experienced here in town, even though,
Mm-hmm.
nobody else is in the same field. It was like, nobody's gonna come and just let you look. Nobody's gonna come
Mm-hmm.
and show you their secrets. Now I do have some stylist friends here in town that do, have a different mentality, but there was nobody doing what I was doing. So I needed to be around somebody to look at, and somebody I could call and be like, hey, what's wrong with my parting on this part right here? What would you have done different?
Mm-hmm.
And that it comes from relationship.
That's right. And one thing too, humility breeds opportunity. It's almost like
Absolutely.
when we humble ourselves and present ourselves, because it reminds me of the scriptures that says the greatest of them all is the least of them. The
Oh,
greatest amongst you are the least. And so it's just like those who serve and those who, it doesn't mean that you Cinderella with, no value or no worth.
right,
It just means that you're okay with, in all honesty, in my opinion, someone who is open to being a servant actually knows their value enough to say, I'm confident enough in my identity to serve you. Like, I
right,
know that in serving you, it doesn't take anything away from me. And
right.
in this industry, I think I really wish that was a part of this industry that we could really change, because I know that I've even gotten backlash from other stylists. Like, why would you tell other stylists or teach other stylists what it is that you're doing? First of all, um, for those who don't know, the world is overpopulated. So it's
right,
only so much these two hands can do. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So I'm
right.
not threatened. I told my husband that not long ago. Like, I literally see no competition. I only see opportunity to help others and opportunity for me
Absolutely,
to grow. And if that can be a person's mindset, then
absolutely,
I believe they would be blessed and flourish all in their own. But it's that
absolutely.
dog eat dog.
And that was the scary part of the industry.
Mhm.
It is that dog eat dog. And I can't tell you what products I use, because you might go and you might do it better. And I mean, if you do it better, okay.
Right.
People are like, why do you give your clients so much information? I can give my clients all the information, I can get them all the products, and they still not gonna get the same results that I
That's
get,
right. That's
because
right.
these are my hands.
That's right.
And so I've never been the type that, and I mean, you just know my personality. I've been very transparent and, in all things. And so I've
That's
never
right.
been the type that be like, oh, I got to keep these secrets to myself. Because like you said, your two hands can only do so much. And I work part-time. And so
Right.
I can't, there's only so much I can do between 4:30 and 9 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's right. And so, first of all, let's get on that. The fact that I always look at you like this woman is superwoman. Because I'm like, first of all, you are a mother to three
Right.
teenagers,
Oh
which is
yeah.
just insane to me. Three teenagers. And then you work as an administration, in an administrative position, and then to turn around and operate as a hairstylist. If you really consider it, all of those positions require you to give,
Yeah.
which as a woman, though we are nurturers, that can be taxing at times. But I just applaud you. Of course, I have to just do this publicly. I applaud you. I tell you this
Oh,
all
well,
the time,
thank
but
you.
I applaud you because I am always in awe. Because I'm like, yo, when does she stop? When does she? And you're just like, I gotta go. I gotta take the kids to the band practice. I gotta do. And I'm just like, wow, wow.
Well, for me, going to cosmetology, and I'm not sure if we'll touch on this, but I'll talk on
Hmm.
it a little bit anyway. Going to cosmetology school was a situation of getting out of poverty.
Hmm.
I was working for the school, and I when I graduated high school, I was most likely to succeed, and all of these wonderful accolades, and all of these scholarships, and this kind of stuff. But I was in love,
Hmm.
and went to school, and we got married and got pregnant with my son a couple months after we got married. And then it was next baby and next baby. And so then it went from, dreaming to we got to work to feed these kids.
Yeah.
And so I joined the school district in order to be on the same schedule with my kids, but that also came with me taking a dramatic pay cut in
Hmm.
order to be in the school district and to be available for my children. And
Hmm.
so I never forget, I went to the Bella Kinks conference, and I think you were there too.
Hmm.
I think you were teaching a class at that one.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I
Yeah,
did two
I think you.
classes or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had gone to a class, and her name is Tanya Rapley.
Rapley. Hmm.
Uh-huh. And I went and I sat in one of her classes, and I listened to her talk about, savings and all these kind of things. And so when she was done, I waited till everybody was gone, and I had a conversation with her just about how I wanted to get from this paycheck to paycheck living. And she told me, she said, the only way you're going to be able to do that is increase your income. Okay, so I need to increase my income. And so it went from, so how do you increase your income? I wanted to be a social worker when I was initially in school, but I understood that with social work came a certain amount of sacrifice of your family.
Hmm.
It also came a certain amount of duty to that job. And so if I saw something, I had to, you're a mandatory reporter. And I'm a mandatory reporter with the school as well, but social work is a little different. And so I was like, oh, that ain't really what I do, but I really love natural hair.
Hmm.
And so one day I decided to go by our cosmetology school to get some information. And when I went and got the information, it was like God said, okay, this is what you need to do. I have never, since I've been out of college, I never had the desire to go back. Everybody's like, oh, you got to go back, you got to get your degree. Never once have I stepped foot in the school and was like, okay, I'm going to go back.
This is it.
But for
Yeah.
cosmetology, it felt like this is what I was supposed to do. And so it was a 2-year journey of working 7:30 to 3:30 or 7:30 to 4. Then the cosmetology school started at 5:30, and then I was in school till 9:30 at night. And that was
Mm.
2 years of that. And my husband and I made the agreement that we both needed to, go to school and do whatever. And so he said, you sacrifice with the kids and stop going to school. So you go first and you get your cosmetology license, and then I'll go back and I'll get my degree.
Mhm.
And that is what we did. And, people are always like, oh my God, you're always working. You always working. And I'm like, I'm not at Walmart doing something that I hate to do. I
Mhm.
actually get to go and do what I love to do every day. And I told my father-in-law, because he was like, I'm just so concerned because you do so much working. And I told him, I said, how did I say it? Oh, I'll say it all the time. I don't pray for what I'm not willing to work for.
That's right. That's good.
And so anything that I pray for, I'm willing to work for.
Mhm.
So I prayed for God to increase our income and be able to take us out of a place of poverty. And so I'm willing to work for it. So you won't ever outwork me. No
Oh,
one can
that's
ever
good.
say that they will outwork me, because I pray real hard for a lot of things. And so
That's
I'm
right.
willing to put in the work. Now, what I'm struggling with is finding the balance, because you're in a place out of poverty now, and you're actually doing really, really well. You don't have to work as hard. But
Right.
it's that scarcity mindset that I can't go back to broke. Broke usually broke is around the corner, and
Hold
it's
on.
really not. It's really not. But I'm just willing to sacrifice. And so, when I went to cosmetology school, that was the first time I ever missed a kid's performance. And, it hurt me. And they told me, they said, Mama, it's okay, because it's going to be worth it. And so with hair, I have the freedom to make my own schedule. If I don't feel like working this week, I just don't work this week.
Right.
But it just took that sacrifice to get those things done. And sometimes it is hard, and sometimes I am tired. But I'm willing to work for every single thing that I pray for.
Yeah.
And so I'm just willing to do that, to put that work in.
And the one thing that really stood, well, several things stood out, but the main thing was the fact that you had that support system.
Hmm.
Your family completely understood on all levels, no matter what your children's age was during that time. They
Hmm.
understood. Your husband was willing to do the sacrifice. I think so many times we have people who will say it because it sounds good, and then get
Right.
into the situation and be like, well, this ain't what I signed up for. It's like, actually you did. But to be able to go through that journey and have the full support of your family, I just, that had to been really amazing.
Well, and it was amazing. My husband and I happened to be working on the same campus at that time, and so we only had one car. So it was like, not only did we work together, then he went and dropped me off. Then he'd have to come at 9:30 at night and pick me up, and get all the kids together, and they all come. But it was like, this is gonna pay off in the end. And I wish I could say that, my husband's sacrifice stopped when I got out of school, because it didn't. Because then I went to work in the salon in the evenings. And so he
Mhm.
discovered he had a love of cooking. So he cooks every day. And, I try to cook on the weekends or when I'm at home. But it was really about, if this is what you want to do, then I got you. And that's what he
Yeah.
told me. He said, I got you. And there were times that I felt, like I wasn't a good wife and I wasn't a good mother. And he was like, stop, first of all, because you're an excellent wife and you're an
Yeah.
excellent mother, but this is the sacrifice that we make. And so he was fortunate enough that when he decided to go back to school, he could do all of his classes online.
Mhm.
And so he did all of his classes online. But then the sacrifice came because we didn't want student loans, so then we paid for the classes out of pocket. And so
Mhm.
then it was a sacrifice of our income, because so that we could pay to get in a better spot. And so
Yeah.
it has been a lot of give and take. And I don't think I added that my husband is a pastor. And so
Right.
in that, we were leading a church, and um, being faithful in all of that as well. And so we're not called Team Murphy for nothing,
That's
because
right.
we operate as a team, and
Yeah.
it is what helps. It helps everything go better because we operate that way.
That is just amazing. One thing though, like, isn't it just amazing how God provides those provisions for that increased faith, like when He's calling us or drawing us to a deeper level of faith, He provides the provision, even though we may not comprehend what they may be in that moment. When we decide to take that leap into faith, it just
Mhm.
seems like as soon as you leap, everything else
You
underneath falls into
it
place.
it's crazy because I was, debating back and forth on whether I should go to school. Should I go to school? How we gonna make it? This kind of stuff. And for whatever the reason, my father-in-law gave my husband $100, and he was like, take this for your family. And Derek gave it to me. And I was like, what is this for? And he was like, you keep asking how God is going to provide, and He keeps providing. I didn't ask Daddy for $100. Daddy didn't have a reason to give me $100. He just gave me $100. That is God providing. Do what you have to do. God's got us. And
Yeah.
that is, I wish I could say that I'm always the one that has this super faith, because I have the super hyper faith for everybody else before myself. as
Yeah.
you well know. It is it is a struggle for me sometimes. And my husband is the God has got this, just do what you got to do. And
Yeah.
that is the way he's always been. And, I tell him all the time, he calms me because he always stays calm. He always stays cool. And it's like, God has got this. I'm not worried about it because God got it. And it's like, but, and he's like, I'm not worried about it. God got it. And so I tend to lean on him in those things.
The one thing that's beautiful though is, though, while you may not be the one that is like really grandiose in that faith, you do have it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I do believe that in the operation, in operating in that logic, you're kind of like my husband, and it brings balance to the relationship. Because I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if Derek is like me, but I can have this monstrous faith, right? But it can sometimes put my head in the clouds,
Uh-huh.
where, you get
Uh-huh.
what I'm saying? So it can cause us to be illogical, just
Uh-huh.
because we're like, oh, God's got it. But did you think this through? And not saying
Right.
that we need to, have full logic to our faith walk, because of course, you know, it's without, you're walking by
Mm-hmm.
faith and not by sight, right? But if I'm walking off this bridge, or driving about to drive off this
Right.
bridge, and I'm like, oh well, God gonna catch me. I mean, really? That ain't just
Well,
necessarily the smartest.
my husband is a dreamer.
Yeah,
He's a dreamer.
that's
And
me.
then he be like, you know what? I have to make sure I have it all together before I tell you, because you're gonna poke holes in my dream. And then now that I'm poking holes in your
Sinking
dream, I just
ships.
want to know. And I know you're familiar with Kev on Stage and
Hmm.
his wife Melissa, but they talk about the kite and the string. That somebody is the
Hmm.
kite that is the flyer, and then somebody has to be the
Somebody has to
string to
tether. Yeah,
keep it grounded. And so we balance each other
that's right.
well with that.
So while we're on that, let's talk about dreaming while doing life. You've mentioned all of these things that was going on, all these things that you had to balance, and almost not even necessarily balance. You were juggling, like legit
Hmm.
five balls in the air, juggling all these different
Hmm.
things. So let's talk about dreaming while doing life. You wanted to get out of poverty. You wanted, but you wanted and needed certain things, but you were also
Hmm.
dreaming at the same time.
Hmm.
So, how exactly did you bring yourself to actually do it? Because it's one thing to dream, but then there's
Hmm.
another. It's a whole nother level of execution to actually do it. So, while you had that support system, like, what was going on in your mind and in your head and even in your spirit when you look up and you like, Jesus, I got 10 things to do, and they all got a deadline.
I've always been a multitasker.
Mm.
I've always been, which is why, a lot of people talk about, at least with me, it's like, you really need to be in a management position. You got to go get your degree so you could be in a management position. But I really feel like I'm called to be, at least in the workplace, an administrative assistant. So I have a keen ability to remember small, minute details about certain things. Somebody could say a child's name, and I'm like, oh yeah, on this day that child scraped his toe, and then his mama got mad, and you remember you had to say da 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 da. And so I'm a multitasker anyway, and I almost work better under pressure.
Mm.
And so when I started cosmetology school, I was a campus secretary at an elementary school. And so I was doing the grades, I was putting all the students, I was printing the report cards, I was doing attendance every day, I was counting all the money. Um, and it was just like, okay, you got this to do, and you just got to get it done. So whatever it
Mhm.
takes to get it done, you got to get it done. And DJ has track practice at school, and Derek got a meeting, and Mackenzie got a GT project, and you just got to get it done.
Mhm.
And so, in the dreaming, it was, I wasn't sure if there was a need for a natural hairstylist in
Mm.
Texarkana. And then it was like I started doing my own hair, and then people was like, "Well, can you come do my hair?" And then it was like, okay. So I had this big suitcase that I would take to everybody's house and was doing their hair. And then it was like, well, if I'm gonna be taking this suitcase around, I could be making some real money instead of making $25 for standing here for 3 or 4 hours
Yeah.
doing somebody's hair. And so it became God, if this is what I'm supposed to do, you got to show me a sign.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's like you go to cosmetology school and then you book every day until you graduate. Every day you're on the floor, you're doing 2 or 3 clients. And it's like, so there's a need. But
Mm-hmm.
like I know the people that you do at cosmetology school normally don't follow you.
Right.
These people are here for the $7 hairstyle.
That's right.
And so then it's like, okay, God, I don't want to be in an open floor salon. I want to be by myself in a suite. There aren't any suites here in town. Oh, this salon just opened and they have suites. And so I walk in and God goes, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like every time I felt something that I wanted to do, he would come in and reassure me that's what it was. And so that's how it kept me dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, okay, Lord, if I can just get, 3 clients a week. And then it turned into if I can just have a Saturday full. And then it turned into, okay, now you book for the month. Now you book for the next month. Now you ain't no appointments. When can I get in? How can I get in? What can I
Yeah.
do? And so, it takes some sacrifice. And during the pandemic, I didn't have to multitask. I was still working for the school, but the salon was shut down, and I almost didn't know what to do with myself
Yeah.
because there was nothing to do. It was like, okay, Lord, this is not the life for me. This is not what I'm meant to do. I
Mm-hmm.
need something to do. But because God continues to provide, it allows me to continue to dream. And then I have children and a husband that's like, okay, let's do that. And so we've always tried to be like, if this is what you want to do, okay, let's do it.
Right.
And that's just the attitude that we've had about everything.
That's really good. And so I was thinking as you were talking, you were oh, it made me think of, how, so basically it was more so about perspective as opposed
Uh-huh.
to the task at hand. It was something that
Right.
I was reading earlier today. It was talking about we know the story. We're also familiar with the story of the farmer and the seeds and the sower.
Mm-hmm.
And while cultivating the land and preparing it to be able to also, we're not just focused on planting the seeds but also making sure that the land is cultivated and nourished enough so that it could actually nourish the seeds too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we were only focused on, I guess, the labor that went into it, then somewhere along the line we'd get to a point where we'd be exhausted from the labor and we'd quit. But if our eye
Mm-hmm.
was on the bounty or the
Right.
harvest that was to be
Right.
yielded after, then
Mm-hmm.
it requires almost, so I guess what I'm saying, it requires like a mental shift, a
Mm-hmm.
focus shift where we're not paying attention to the task at hand but the reward that comes at the end.
And I think what God does, at least with me, is my husband calls me a Barnabas. He says, you're an encourager.
Hmm.
You take the time to encourage people, and I do. And what I found is, as I pour, it's poured back into me, and
Yeah.
as I give, it's given back to me. As I sow, it's sown back to me. And so every time, you're encouraging somebody and then God drops something or somebody says something that encourages me. And so it's like, it's okay to give, it's okay to sow, it's okay to encourage because I got you. I'm gonna
Hmm.
make sure that you're taken care of if you do what I ask you to do.
That's right. And one thing that I've always admired about you is that you don't allow the pressures of society to tell you that you need to be more than what God has already called you to be. And that you've been able to, I mean, literally wedge yourself into those positions that He's called you to and master them. I think because of social media, our our identity and our idea or ideology behind success can get a little murky because we see what everybody else is doing. And what I've always admired is that you're like, no, God put me right here at this level. And I honestly, I watch you, and I know that this has been a mentor to mentee type thing, but in a lot of ways you've mentored me without even uttering a word, because
Oh,
I've been
thank
able
you.
to watch you and see, like, she is unbothered unbothered by the pressures of society. And you have literally, I'm not going to say master, because we're all a work in progress, so I don't want to put that much pressure on you, but you have literally excelled at being what God has called you to be at the level that you've been called to, and not grapple for all these other things. How do you do that?
Well, there's a story that goes with that. So, and it's kind of a two-part. So, I talked about how I was in high school, and I was voted most likely to succeed in all of these things, all these scholarships and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got married, it was like, oh, you're throwing your life away. Oh, you're gonna have these kids and all these
Yeah.
things. And I did those things. Everything that they said I was gonna do, that's what I did. But I was at my 10-year class reunion, and I was talking to somebody that I was very close to in high school. And he said, well, what have you been doing? And I said, oh, we have 3 kids, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And he said, oh, that was a waste of your talent.
Uh-oh.
And what I understood, what I learned in being a young mother, is that I define my success.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't have to be a doctor. I don't have to be a lawyer. I don't have to be any of those things, because raising healthy, productive children in this society is a success.
That's right.
And so I had to change my perspective, because I was the one, big and pregnant in the store with all these babies, and you see somebody's mama and they're like, oh, you having another baby. And it's like, yeah, I'm grown and I'm married. I can have all of them that I want.
Right.
But I had to change my definition of success.
Yeah.
And what God called me to do, because I know He called me to be a mama. And I know He called me to be a mother to those 3. And then I had a child with a disability. And so I had to make sure that, I was His voice, and I had to make sure that things were right for Him. And then also, I'm a part of the Church of God in Christ. I've been a evangelist missionary in the Church of God in Christ almost 10, 11 years now. No, let's see, DJ is 16, so almost 15 years now. And what I did in that, I went in to being a wife, a minister's wife at first, and then a pastor's wife, and trying to be somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I would wear the big bling suits and the big hats and all these things. And I'll never forget, my husband told me, I was about 25. And my husband told me, he said, you look 45 in that suit. I was like, huh?
Say what?
Excuse me? And he said, you make yourself look older.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, every time that it comes around on my Facebook memories, I always share the picture. But I was like 19, 20, and I really looked 45. And there's a picture of me at 30, and I looked totally different. But it was because I was trying to mold myself into somebody else. Instead of being free. And God came in and He freed me from the opinions of other people, from I really don't care. Most of the time I am unbothered. Now there are some things that bother me, but I'll be real unbothered. And when I have those moments, because I do have those moments of, self-doubt and those things, I check myself real quick, and it's like, that ain't what God called you to do. God told you to be this right here. And it was something you told me, because, as hairstylists, we have a tendency to go through social media and compare ourselves to other people. And you told me, when there's a moment that you feel that you start doubting yourself when you're looking at somebody else's work, that's somebody that you probably don't need to follow. Or maybe you need to take a break from social media at that time if that person is making you feel less about yourself and what you can do. There is a such thing as healthy comparison, but then when you start to tear yourself down because of what you see, then you need to change what you're doing. And so that's what I try to do. I try to, if there's somebody that I follow that begins to make me feel bad, I will unfollow in a minute.
That's right.
But I had to look at success in a different definition, because success is different from everybody. And people's words have power. I was giving a speech or something, and I talked about your words having power, and you need to be careful what you say to somebody, because somebody telling me that being a mother and a stay-at-home wife was a waste of my talent could have done something to me. It really could have. But I refuse to do that, because I know what God had given me, and and Him giving me a child with a disability that could not speak, that was going to be living with autism the rest of his life. I knew that I had to help him to be successful. And a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, he does this and he does that. What did you do?" It wasn't me; it was God. Empowering me to be a voice for my child and for myself. And so I refuse. And I also taught my daughter the same thing. It's like, you don't let nobody make you feel bad about yourself. You define who you are. You decide what you're going to do. And so, a lot of people are like, "Oh, yeah, bougie." And it's like, no, we're not bougie.
We just know who we are.
We know who we are.
And
so, my children excel in academics and in band and all of these things. And it's a situation of, who you are. My daughter got homecoming queen, and she was like, she told me, "I never get on court," and all that. This is her first year on court and all of that. And the day she got it, I didn't say much. And then the second day I sent her a video, and I told her, I said, "You have just proved that being good and being virtuous and being just and just an overall good person pays off in the end. So continue to be who you are.
Yeah.
Continue to be who you are, and it will pay off. You don't have to lower your standards. You don't have to try to be anybody else. Be you, and it's gonna pay off." And so that's what I just try to do. I changed my definition of success for myself.
Thank you for tuning into episode 4, The Audacity of Faith. Stick around for episode 5 as we address the need for faith in business and the fruits of that faith. More with special guest Angela Pickett-Murphy.